Hi everyone, I'm Nishant Ayers, an Iris app developer from the batch of 27. Welcome back to the third session in our Flutter Bootcamp. Today we'll walk through setting up navigation in Flutter using the Navigator class and adding screens with and without parameters. We'll also learn how to process data using the Hive package. And to learn all of this, we'll be making a basic to-do app which the users can add tasks, view details, and mark them as complete by deleting them. So to start off, I have some dummy template code ready to speed up the process. Uh, I have a create page, error page, home page, and a to-do page. I'll share the code with you so that you can go through it. It should be simple enough, very simple from the last video. So let's start off with main dot dot. In the home page, I'll give the home widget to be the home page, and you can see the home page appears as like I've done. So home page is a stateful widget which contains a list. So currently every to do is going to be a string, and if there are no strings it will show nothing to show, and if we have a string then it will show that string. Okay, so now what I want to do is to be able to show a different page to add a to do when I click on this button. Currently if you see the floating action button here doesn't do anything when I press it, correct? But I want to be able to this page when I click on that. Just to show you how that page is, I'll use it here. Uh, I want this page to be shown when I click on that floating action button. One way you can do that is by using the native navigator that Flutter provides. So to use that, first we get the navigator instance from the context. So what we do is navigator dot of context. This will return a navigator instance that we can use to push pages onto the stack or pop pages onto the stack. Now, what is a stack here? So, as you can see on the screen, we can only see a particular page at once. So, if we want to display multiple pages, what we do is we push another screen onto the stack such that the top of the stack is the only screen which is visible, and if we want to show the previous page we pop that page so that the previous page is visible. The navigator basically uses a stack in the uh, implementation to show pages. So what I do is navigator dot of context dot push, and then I have to give it a route. So because we are using material app, I'll create a material page route, and then it asks for the page that I want to create using a builder. So I'll create uh, I'll create a builder that returns create page. Okay, so first I use the context to get a navigator instance, and on that instance I call the push method which takes in a material page route as an argument. This can be either a material page route or a Cupertino page route based off of what theme you need. So here we are using a material page route, and then what page we want to display, that would be a create page. So now if I reload, and then I have to change this to home page again, home page, and here now if I click on this, voila, I'm in the create page. Now I can type something here, say hello, and now I want to be able to click on create and get this text hello back in my home page so that I can add this to my list here. Okay, so now how would I do this? What push actually does is, this is a asynchronous function. It pushes this page onto the stack and waits for this page to be popped. So from this page, whenever create page calls pop navigator.context.pop, we can return a value from create page that can be used here. So here in create page, if you can see, just a basic form with a column inside of it and a text form field which stores a string, and every time it changes, I'm changing the uh, title that is going to be the to do. So basically, I don't want the page to get popped if the user hasn't filled the title form field. So first what I'll do is, here, because I'm every single time the value has changed, I'm reassigning title. So I'll just check title dot trim after removing all the spaces if the title is empty. If it is actually empty, I'll just show them a message using the scaffold messenger. In case the user has a title, I want to return the title back to my home page so that I can process it here and add it to my to-dos page, to-dos list, sorry. So here what I'll do is, again, I'll access the navigator instance using navigator dot of context, and now I'll pop this page, but while popping, you can see it takes an optional argument called result, and it can be of any type. Here I'm passing a string type, and the object I'm returning is title. And then if I go back to my home page here, wherever I'm doing push, if you hover over it, you can see it returns a future of type T. So here what I'll have to do is, I'll have to await this first of all to get the result, and to await it I have to make this function asynchronous. So hopefully you have an idea about asynchronous function already. And after I await here, I'll store the result in a new variable. Okay, and then now this can be of two things: either the title have written or null in case the user popped it back using the back button, or the back button of the uh, like the native back button, Android back button, or swiping back on ours. Correct, right? So now what I'll do here is, I'll check if result is equal to null. If it is null, don't do anything. But if it is not null, I'll have to add it to my list of to-dos, right? So I'll call set state, and I'll do to-dos dot add, and I'll first of all convert the variable into a string, because when I do push, I don't know what kind of data type is going to be returned. But here, since I'm creating the page and I'm returning title, I'm sure it's either going to be a string if the pop method is called here, or if the pop method is called from the app bar using this button, it's going to be null. Okay, so let's test this out. We'll go back, go to the create page. I'll create a thing called hello world, let's say, and then I'll click on create. Voila, and we have hello world here. So we have a functioning to do app now. I can add another one, say to do 2, and then click on create, and that gets added. But if I try to create with an empty title, nothing happens. If I quit back here, I don't get an error. I can confirm that by going to the debug console here. If you press Ctrl Shift Y in Visual Studio Code, it opens your debug console, and all the logs from Flutter will be shown here. So as you can see, there's no errors. But if I had not done this null check here, it would have thrown an error. So whenever you are returning a value from material page route or like navigator.push, check if it is null, and then actually what you're supposed to do is, here before converting it into a string, check if result is a string. Okay, and then if it is a string, then convert it uh, or sorry, add it to the to-dos list. Okay, so now this won't show any errors, or there's no way of getting an error now. Cool. Then I'll add a leading button to this list style. I'll sorry, trailing, not a leading. I'll add a icon button, and on press, what I would want to do is uh, I want to remove this particular to do. So the to do that belongs to this list style from this list. So I have the index. So what I'll do is to do's dot, I'll have to do set state because the to do's list is changing and we'll have to rebuild the whole tree. So I'll do set state to do's dot remove at. I have to provide an icon. Let's say I'll give icons dot delete. Okay, and then we can make this const. Let's save. So we have a delete button now. If I click on this, you can see that disappears. I can add another one to do one, and then do three. Then I can remove from anywhere and it properly removes it and updates the tree. Cool. But now the thing is, if I restart the app, you will notice something. The app has been restarted and where are my tools? They are gone. Why? Why is that? That is because this is a stateful widget that I have here, homepage, and then every single time this homepage is initialized, it creates a new state. What happens when I create a new state? I create an empty list. So any old list that was there is gone. How do I fix that? I'll have to store that locally on my device so that when I quit out of the app and I open the app again, there will be a file stored with all my to-dos that I can read from and display to the user. Now, how would I go on doing this? Well, there's a package called Hive in Flutter. Now, to install Hive, we run a command called flutter pub add hive underscore flutter. This adds the package hive underscore flutter, which allows us to use Hive in Flutter. So for this, we'll have to make our main function asynchronous. And as you can see, we already have a suggestion from Copilot. We'll have to run this function called widgets flutter binding dot ensure initialized. Basically, what it does is it allows us to call functions that are written natively. For example, if this app is running on Android, it allows us to use Android functions. If this app is running on iOS, it allows us to use iOS functions, etc. If you want to know what this does in detail, you'll have to learn about what Flutter engine does. You can look it up. Fine. Coming back. After this, we'll have to await hive dot init flutter. So this initializes Hive to be used in Flutter. Okay. And then we'll run our app. We'll wait for first Hive to be initialized and then we'll run our app. Going back to the home page. Now what we want is whenever this state is built, instead of this being empty, we want to load it from the cache or from the local storage. How would I do that? Now we have Hive, right? To access data from Hive, we have to open a file which is asynchronously done. So we don't know when it's going to return. It will return a future, right? So we have to wait for a future. How would we do that? We can use a widget called future builder. So if I copy this body here and then I replace it with the future builder. Now it takes two arguments, required arguments, future and builder. We'll come to the future. Builder, we'll just replace it with a build function which takes in a context and in this case a value, and then returns a widget. Correct. It gives an asynchronous snapshot. Basically, it does not return the value of the future, but instead returns a snapshot which is either null or the value of the future. So initially, when we are waiting for the future, this won't have any value, but later when the future is completed, the snapshot will update, the build function will be run again, but this time the snapshot will have the value. So here what we'll have to do is we have to check. So if the connection state is not done, return a circular progress indicator. Now if I don't supply it any value, it will just be spinning. And then if it is not, if it is equal to done, then we'll go into this else case and return this widget. Right? But now we have to supply this future. So let's create a future. Okay. And then we'll have to give it a value. So for a stateful widget, for a state in a stateful widget, there's a function called initState, right? So we'll override this function and say future is equal to hive dot open box. So what does open box do? Box is basically an equivalent to a file. So it will contain a lot of values like in a box, and we can pick one or many values from a particular box. We give this box names and the name is going to be same as the file name. So now because we are storing to dos, we can give this file slash box a name of to dos. So if you hover over this, you will see it will return a future of box. Correct. So we'll change this to future of box, and then here we can actually make this late, which tells Flutter Dart, sorry, it tells Dart that this object is not yet initialized, but before I use it is going to be initialized. So as init state is always called before build, before I'm using future, I'm initializing it. Okay. Here now in the future builder, the future is going to be this future which contains a box. Correct. So what I'll do is, instead of storing this list, I'll directly use the box to fetch all the to dos. So now I'll make to dos a local variable, and instead of making this empty, I'll do snapshot dot data. So dot data will return the value of the future after it is done. Correct. So now data dot get. We'll have to do dot get. What dot get does is it fetches a value corresponding to a key from that box. In this case, since all the to dos we are going to store are going to be incomplete, I'll give the key to be incomplete, and then I'll give a default value to be an empty list. Okay, and then we'll have to add a few null checks, so that because I've given a default value here, dot get cannot return null, and because we know the connection state is done here, data cannot be null. So we are fetching the data from the box, but we also have to store the data in the box and remove the data from the box. So whenever to-dos is updated, we'll also have to update the data in the Hive file basically. So whenever to-dos is changed, I'll put the data for the key incomplete to be to-dos. So what put does is it creates a new entry in the box with the key which we have supplied and associates with the value to-dos. So even if incomplete already has a value, it will overwrite it and give its value to be to-dos. We'll also have to do that here. But if you see here, to-dos is not accessible here because we have used the future builder for the body. So we'll have to move this future builder to encompass this whole scaffold. So you can see to-dos is now accessible in the floating action button. So here, after we add the new result to the to-do, we'll have to update the data in the Hive to put the new to-dos that contains the extra to-do. Fine. So now, because this dependencies have changed, we'll have to stop the app that is running currently and then restart it. Yeah, the build is done. So you can see there's nothing to show currently. And if we add a to do, say to do 1, then click on create, it gets added here. And now if I restart, you'll see after restarting, the to do's is still present. Yeah, it reloads because here we have used future builder, and while it is opening the box, you could see the circular progress indicator, and after it was loaded, to do was loaded back again. Now let's test the removing feature. So first let me add a few more to do's. So if I click on this, it's gone, and even if I hot restart, it will reload, and 2 is gone, and it's only 1 and 3. Now we have just a list. Wouldn't it be cool if I could tap on this to do and just look at that to do? Well, we could do that because now we can change pages, right? How would I do that? Here in the floating action button, we are doing navigator.ofcontext.push, and we are creating a new route and then supplying what page is going to be visible for that route. Well, we can do something similar. Here we are using list styles. List styles has a parameter called onTap. Here we can do navigator.ofContext again to get the current navigator instance, and then we can push a to do page. Well, we don't want to push the same page for every single to do. If I click on to do 1, I want a page that is specific to do 1. If I push a to do 3, I want a page that is specific to do 3. So we'll have to pass in arguments, correct? So we'll create a material page route, and in the builder, we'll return a to do page. Well, to do page is again one of the pages I had created before in hand. It takes a string as an argument. So in the home page, whenever I'm creating a to do page, I have to pass in a parameter string. So now here, and then I don't have to await this here because I'm not going to be taking any input from this page. So if I hot reload this and now click here, I have a to do page and it says to do 1, and I'll click here, it says to do 3, right? These two are different, although we use the same page. This is how you can use parameters. Well, this is kind of empty, right? It would be nice if I had something like a description. So I'll have to store descriptions. I can create a new class called to-dos, which is going to have both the title and description, and I store the object of that class and then just display that. So now let's create a class. In the lib folder, I'll create a new file called todo.dart. Here I'll create a class todo. So now I have a non-primitive type. Non-primitive type is any type that is not built into Dart. To-do is a type I have defined. Hive actually supports non-primitive types. All I'll have to do is I'll have to add a decorator called Hive type, and I'll have to give it a type ID. This type ID has to be unique for each and every type you create. So if I create, let's say for example sake, I'll create another called to do 2. If I want to store this also in Hive, I'll have to give it a Hive type with the type ID anything other than 0 now. So I can give it like 1. This number is what it uses to identify how it has to read the data in the file. Okay, since here we are going to be only using one class, type I can supply the type ID 0. Now I'll also have to tell it what all do I store when I am saving the to do. Sometimes I might want to store all the fields, sometimes I might only want to store some of the fields. So every single field I want to store, I'll add another decorator called Hive field, and this number also has to be unique, but this is relative to this class. So in this class, the 0th field is title and the first field is description. Again, if I had another class called to do 2 and I had given it a type ID type ID of 1 and I had another string title here, I can give it a Hive type ID of 0 because this is relative to do 2. This 0 or Hive field 0 is not the same as this Hive field 0 because these two belong to different classes with different type IDs. So basically the combination of this and this should be unique for every single field. So here it is 0.0 kind of, here it is 1.0. So these two would be unique. Hope you have understood that part. One more thing you have to do here is, although you have created a Hive type and told that these are the fields that are going to be stored, how is Hive going to find out about this? Well, one way you can do that is, we can create another class that Hive can use to identify it and tell Hive about that class. So for that, we use something called as generators. We let Hive use these decorators called types and fields and creates its own custom class that it can use to read data from the file and write data to the file, and let us use the to do as like usually how we would use strings or anything else. So to do that, first we'll have to add two more packages. So we'll add, one would be Hive generator, and these are packages that won't be used in the app itself, but these are packages that are needed for the development of the app. So these are going to be dev dependencies. So one was Hive generator and the other one is build runner. So what these two do is, well, build runner is used to run generators of different packages, and Hive generator will go through all the files, and any class that has this decorators, it creates another class using the data from these decorators that we have given, that it can use to read and write. So here we have to tell it what file the new class goes into. So let's say the generated class should go into todo.g.dat.g, so that it is signified it's a generated file and not a user made file. And now in the terminal we do dart run build runner build. Now what this is doing currently is, it is going through all the dart files in my lib folder and checking if any class has this Hive type decorator. If it has that Hive type decorator, it is going to create another class, in this case called to-do adapter, which I can use to tell Hive how to read and write a to-do. So now it has created this new generated file. It is a part of to-do.dat. So wherever I include to-do.dat, to-do.g.dat is also included automatically. So see, as you can see, it has created a new class called to-do adapter, and it has the type ID 0, and it has two functions, read and write, that will that are used to read the to-do itself from the file and write to-do to the file. These are other things that it uses to check if two things are the same. Okay, so now we have to tell Hive to use that adapter. So let's go to main.dat. After Hive is initialized, we do Hive dot register adapter, and we say register the to do adapter. Yeah, so here we do to do adapter. We have you can see that to do dot dat is included, and not, we don't include to do dot g dot dat, but we include to do dot dat, and we have access to do adapter. So now we'll have to modify the presentation to handle to do instead of string. So if I go to home page here, uh, first of all, this has to be just a list, and here I'll make this to do. I have to import to do, and then whatever value I get, I'll cast it to a to do, uh, to do, and then I have to input a to do here in the to do page, to do. Okay, and then um, let's modify this to, we'll modify this later. This has to be dot title, and then oh, this has to be to do. Yeah, and then with the magic of editing, I'll edit this page and we'll be back right here. And there we are. I've modified to the page to show the title and the description. So now let's go back to main.dat. So since we have made a lot of changes, including changes to PubSpec, and we have generated a lot of files, I'll just stop this current instance and rebuild the app, and then we'll come back when the app is rebuilt and we'll see what's the final product. So we are back. The app is built, and yeah, as you can see, there's nothing to show. So let me create a to-do. We'll give it a title one, description, uh, make the video, create. Yeah, so you can see it says one, and when I tap on it, it goes to the to-do page and shows the proper description. I can create some more. Yeah, so I've created a few more, and then these uh, have properly go to the particular descriptions and all. And now if I restart the app also using the hot restart, you will notice that these will remain the same. Yeah, so even after the restart, Hive properly read the file that was saved, and it is able to show the to-dos that we created earlier. We can also remove to-dos which will persist across restarts again. And yeah, so that's all for this session. Hope you learned navigation and local storage in depth. If you have any more doubts, please feel free to reach out, and I have linked a few documentations in the description. If you have doubts, you can go there. Thank you.